According to Coach Mike Elko, Texas A&M will have a game-time decision at quarterback for the rest of the season.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have some quotes from Coach Elko on Aggie Football Hour to break down. And the first one, and we're going to talk more about my opinion still on what's going on with the quarterbacks here. This has been one of the more interesting quarterback situations, and Texas A&M is the CEO of interesting quarterback stuff, and this has been one of the more interesting ones. So we're going to get more into that in segment 2. We're also going to talk a little bit about a player that stepped up, how good the running back room has been. We'll talk about all that and what the offensive line needs to do against Bowling Green. We'll talk about all that today. But this quote is the first thing that stood out to me. Coach Elko said, the quarterback position will likely be a game-time decision for the rest of the season. And I don't understand that, okay? And I don't want to be – we're going to talk more about quarterbacks in segment 2. I want to really kind of break this down for just a second or two here. But I don't understand why at the most important position on the field you are going to have it be a game-time decision every week. And, Coach Elko also goes on to talk about how they don't change the offense for, whichever quarterback's going to be out there. We have not been prepping separate offenses for the two quarterbacks. We feel confident both of them. When you play an SEC schedule, you need depth of the position. We're very fortunate. Now, Coach Elko's 100%, right. The Aggies are very fortunate to have solid quarterbacks top to bottom. But, I guess my point here is I don't understand why you don't – like, if Marcel Reed is your quarterback, Marcel Reed's your quarterback. If you still believe in Conner Weigman, go, hey, it was one bad start. We're not concerned about Conner Weigman. We believe in him. He's our starter for a reason. Then roll with him. But I just don't – rhythm – and then once again, I trust this coaching staff. I do trust this coaching staff. This decision, it surprises me a little bit. And I'm really anxious to find out what this means as we get deeper into the season. But, I think that we've seen people try and do the revolving door at quarterback, and it just doesn't work all the time. I mean, we've seen it work. We've seen it very rarely work. And I'm just not a huge fan. So I don't understand this decision. I think that you have two really solid quarterbacks in Conner Weigman and Marcel Reed, and whichever one you go with, I believe in. I think that heading into the season, I was a huge Conner Weigman guy. He had one bad start. I think maybe as a whole we're being too quick to judge him. We'll talk about that in segment 2. But if you roll with Conner, cool. Marcel Reed looked incredible against Florida. And I think that you can really develop an offensive system. And I know they said they're not going to change it, but you could with his ability to use his legs. That could be really hard to stop. Either way you go here, but I mean, I don't know if I believe in this whole revolving door. Now, I also think that Conner, this injury is a little bit more significant than – when I say significant, I think it's one of those injuries where it's just going to be constantly nagging. I don't think it's going to be one of those injuries where it's like, you know what I mean, where it's going to be a problem for a while, especially for a quarterback. So, knowing what he's dealing with. And so I'm definitely monitoring that and paying attention to that. But if I was his coaching staff, I don't know why you don't just roll with somebody, or roll with Marcel Reed 100% until Connor's good to go. And if he's good to go and you want to go back to him. But I don't know if I'm all in on the revolving door here at quarterback. Let me know in the YouTube comments, how do we feel about that comment? that the quarterback position is going to be a game time decision the rest of the season. That one kind of blows my mind a little bit, and I'm really curious to see what that means as we get deeper and deeper into the 2024 season. Another thing I noticed from some of the quotes here from Coach Elko, he really is respecting, and I love this when coaches do this. He has a lot of respect for Bowling Green. You never, now, I mean, I'm allowed to do it because I'm not on the team. I'm allowed to say, not be super concerned about this game. Y'all, us fans, we're allowed to not be super concerned about this game. But the coaching staff, you're not allowed to do it. That's just, it's kind of, even if Coach Elko doesn't truly believe what he's saying, it's good to say it. You always want to respect your opponent. You don't want to add fuel to the fire. You don't. So, here's some comments from Coach Elko. He says he wants to come out and start fast. Winning the turnover battle is critical. We've done that 2 weeks in a row. We have to do a great job of handling their plan. They're coming off a bye week. They're going to come in here aggressively on both sides of the ball. And I mean, remember, this is, Bowling Green produces talent, right? I mean, look, Cassius Howell comes from Bowling Green. This is not a joke of a team. This is not a team that you can just play. I mean, seriously, you could not play your worst game ever and win this game. Bowling Green is an okay team, and they've played. Coach Elko talks about it. They've played in tough environments. They played against Penn State. They know what this is like. So, they can't just skate through this and not be concerned about that. So he talked about the penalties, but it's something we talked about on yesterday's episode of Locked On Aggies. Coach Elko said the penalties weren't good. Obviously, that's what we want to fix. After we got the lead and got up, I don't think we finished the game how we wanted to. That's something we need to get cleaned up and fixed. And I agree with that. I mean, I talked about the missed field goals, the penalties. There was a lot Texas A&M did against Florida where it was like, man, I am really, really happy that you had this big lead you did. And then, Coach Elko did go on to say this about Marcel Reed. He said the electricity Marcel Reed has as an athlete jumps off the screen. It's a different gear of athleticism that he runs with, and it's not and it's hard to handle as a defense. There's no question about that. I mean, I keep going back to that one play where he did the jab step and the guy bit, and then he looked like a werewolf. That was so funny. But he did the cut and went back. Oh, that was beautiful football. Coach Elko said this about Bowling Green quarterback Connor Weigman. Experienced quarterback, has been in the SEC stadiums and SEC environments. He's not going to get rattled. At Penn State 2 weeks ago, he was very comfortable. So, a veteran quarterback at Bay is like a guy that is well known in the SEC. And I think that Coach Elko is right. He's a guy that is capable of playing well, capable of coming in and doing good things. So you've got to be ready for that. This is interesting to me as well. Coach Elko said that Texas A&M had a pretty good idea on Thursday that Marcel Reed would start against Florida, but Elko said they did not tell Reed he would start until game day. That's interesting on if you agree or disagree with that. I think to me, I look at that and I go like this. As a quarterback, it probably would have been nice to know that he's going to start. But then, I think that leads to overthinking it. I think that leads to some different stuff like that. And I believe there was a chance Conner was going to play. I mean, we saw him warming up. So I believe that when Marcel Reed got the news, it just takes away the overthinking and the stress. And he went, okay, it's time to go out and ball. So, and we know he can do that because that's exactly what he did against Oklahoma State in the bowl game last year. I mean, he just was thrusted into a game. He had to go in because of the injury to Jalen Henderson, and he was great. So I think that, that's something that it was really cool to see. Coach Elko went on to talk about this, about the noise in Gainesville. He said, it was loud at kickoff. I think it affected us early, and it affected some of the things we could do with the snap count. Our kids were rattled on the first drive, and we had to settle things down. Our kids adjusted and adapted to it. Love to see that. You're going to be playing in some loud stadiums, playing against South Carolina and playing against Auburn. And, you've got a couple more tough environments to walk into. So it's good to know that this offense was able to kind of figure it out and as the game went on. So I like this. Coach Elko said that Conner Weigman remained engaged on the sideline, communicating with Marcel Reed at Florida. Elko pointed to Weigman and Reed's buy-in to A&M's culture and expressed the importance of culture, which I love that. I mean, we know how much of a competitor Conner Weigman is, and we know how much he wants to be out there. So it's really something. It's really cool to see that he's out there. He's rooting on his teammates and helping Marcel Reed adjust as well as he can. Got a couple more quotes to go through. We're going to talk about my opinions on the quarterback battle because I still think there's a conversation to be had here about why people are overreacting and underreacting to things, and we're going to talk about that. Also, I want to talk about the offensive line and why stacking solid performances will be huge for this team as they get ready to get deeper into SEC play. We're going to talk about those things coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I'll tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now, through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel any time. Just visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook today. Also, want to tell you about our friends over at Roy. Hey, Aggies fans, have you heard about Roy? It stands for Return on You, and it's a new platform that lets the fans get involved in NIL like never before by making contributions directly to their favorite athletes. By supporting the players directly, you can help shape rosters, retain talent, and keep your favorite athletes out of the transfer portal. As you know, NIL has changed the game for athletes. Roy changes the NIL game for fans. Roy allows fans to directly back their favorite college athletes. With Roy, fans can play a key role in shaping the future of their favorite teams while athletes maximize their name, image, and likeness potential. Download Roy for iOS or Android and enter referral code Locked On, and you'll automatically be entered in a sweepstakes to win $5,000 cash. Visit joinroy.com for additional details. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Get off the sidelines and into the NIL game with Roy. So we got a couple more quotes here. Obviously, Coach Elko has some, past experience knowing Bowling Green very well. So he goes on to say this. Bowling Green is a place that is very near and dear to my heart. I started working there 3 days after my daughter was born. Elko, who said his family of 5 once shared a dorm room at temporary housing at Bowling Green, served as a defensive coordinator for Dave Clawson from 2019 to 2013. And this is another interesting quote. I like this. Coach Elko says, we use the word evaluation all the time. The one thing that is lost in all of this is that evaluations are critical. When Marcus Ratcliffe decided to come here, that wasn't a full fanfare commitment, which is true. He's leading our team in tackles. That, to me, is not true unless y'all are looking at something different. But if you pull up ESPN, but that's not the point. The point is Marcus Ratcliffe's been playing good football, and he's been playing good football, and in doing so, proves that point of maybe not every commit in the portal in high school recruiting is going to have fans jumping up and down in excitement, but everything's important, and this coaching staff has done a great job evaluating talent to this point, and it's been very clear watching the players they brought in via the portal and some of the young guys that have come in via high school. So I want to take one more stab at this quarterback conversation before we, tomorrow we'll deep dive more into the Bowling Green game. Also going to answer some mailbag questions tomorrow. So if y'all have any questions you want answered on the show, regular season, quarterback battle, any positions, recruiting, anything about the game tomorrow, anything about the rest of the season, leave those in the YouTube comments or send those to a DM to me on Twitter. But, I think that there was a really good article from the Gig'em Gazette that I read, and I highly recommend it, basically talking about the quarterback battle and what's going on there. I want to give y'all the title of that, so y'all can give that a gander. It is right here. What Texas A&M football fans are missing in the Conner Weigman, Marcel Reed debate. Really solid article there over at Gig'em Gazette. Go check that out. But I agree with a lot of what they're saying. And a lot of what they're saying is pretty simple. A lot of what they're saying is the quarterback, could we be overreacting to one great performance from Marcel Reed and one terrible performance from Conner Weigman? And I think that could be the case. I mean, I talk about this all the time. Recency bias is a thing. And that's why this whole time, this whole time I gave my opinions, and the injury to Weigman kind of changed it. After the week 1 game against Notre Dame, I said, listen, this is too important of a season to not have your best guy out there. And right now, even after a bad performance against Notre Dame, we believe Conner Weigman is still your best guy. But maybe that isn't the case. And I said, if he does not perform well against Florida, it might be time to make a change, because fortunately, you have a really deep, really good room at quarterback. And that was my take on it. Then the injury happens, and Marcel Reed comes in and is just incredible against Florida. The one thing that the Gig'em Gazette said, and it's funny because it's an argument based in fact, so it's hard to really, they were talking about how, the long pass to Cyrus Allen really, boosted his stat line. And that's true. So he was, 11 for 17 for like $168. If you take away that, it was about a 68-yard catch. If you take that away, he's, about 10 for 16 for about 100 yards. And I get that. Now, I also get that this team wants to run the football. So what I care more about than Marcel Reed's, let's say, and first of all, I also don't like that argument because the play did happen. I always think that's a silly argument. I mean, it'd be like if I challenged one of y'all to a 3-point shooting contest, and I was like, well, if you hadn't made those final 3, I would have won. Well, I did make them. Sorry. So I don't fully agree with that argument of, if you take away that pass, you can't because it happened. That's a bit silly to me. But I get where they're coming from. I get where they're coming from, but it's an argument that I'm not a huge fan of. But I mean, what I care more about than the 100 passing yards or 168 passing yards was what Marcel Reed did on the ground. I mean, Marcel Reed, of course, in this game, had carried the football 13 times for 83 yards, had a touchdown on the ground. He also had 178 passing yards and 2 touchdowns through the air. And I guess that pass, it was a 73-yard pass to Cyrus Allen. So he would have had like a 105 whatever yards through the air. So that's my point. My point is, I mean, look at the difference here. They threw the ball 17 times and ran it 55. That is what they want to do. Yeah, I mean, hey, if you want your quarterback to have 300 passing yards, then throw it 30 times. That's not what Coach Klein wants to do. So I don't totally agree with that argument of, well, he wouldn't have had a ton of passing yards. I don't know if I agree with that. I am all in that. So I guess my point is, and I talked about this in segment 1, I don't know if I'm all in on the swinging door at quarterback either. I think what I would like to see is you pick a starting quarterback. I trust this coaching staff to pick a starting quarterback, whether it's Conner, whether it's Marcel. Which one of those 2 guys you pick to be your starter, I'm fine with. I trust in this staff. I believe they're going to make the right decision. But now I think some of this could be Conner still banged up and Conner is still dealing with an injury. That could be reality here. But when he gets healthy, also, but I mean, if you get deeper into this, let's say Conner Weigman is healthy for the LSU game. Let's say that's the case. He's 100% by the LSU game. But you see Marcel Reed take care of business against Bowling Green, Arkansas, Mississippi State, and maybe pulls out an upset win over Missouri. I don't think you're putting Conner Weigman back in the game. And that's my point is I think that if someone is playing really well, and that's the problem with having great options at quarterback. It's hard to bench the hot hand to put in a player like that. So to me, this quarterback room, I do think that we need to give Conner Weigman the benefit of the doubt. And in doing so, if let's say he's healthy in 2 weeks and they throw him back out there, we're rolling with Conner Weigman. We have to believe in him and trust in him. He had one bad game. We've seen him play well. We've seen him in big moments. We've seen him against LSU. We've seen him against Miami. I know they lost the game, but he played well. We've seen him play bad. He played bad before getting hurt against Auburn, and he played awful against Notre Dame. We've seen him do it, but we know what he can do. So if the staff rolls with Conner Weigman, you got to just believe in him. If the staff rolls with Marcel Reed, you got to believe in him. And I think that's kind of the way you got to look at this is either way they go, there's positives and there's negatives, and that's just the reality here. So I'm really interested to see how this quarterback battle works out, ladies and gentlemen. I want to talk about the offensive line, and we'll do that coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at Game Time. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, everybody that is purchasing a ticket to any kind of event needs to be doing so on Game Time. Whether it's a professional sporting event, whether it's a college sporting event, whether it's a concert, whether it is you're going to see a comedian or you're going to see some theater, whatever you're going to see that you could buy a ticket to, Game Time is the spot to go and do that. I love the Game Time app. It's easy to use. It's convenient. I like how you can see the seats you're purchasing from the app. You got to go check out Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. So the offensive line against Florida was really, really good. And in all honesty, it's been really, really good just top to bottom this season. And I've just been really fired up about the play of this offensive line. You know, heading into the season, we talked a lot about if this offensive line can just be serviceable, if this offensive line can just be okay, this football team has a chance to be really good. And I think this offensive line has not been okay. I think they've been good to really good. And that's exciting. If this offensive line is able to protect Marcel Reed, protect Conner, if it's able to create holes for Le'Veon Moss and Amari Daniels and EJ Smith, it's going to be really significant for this team moving forward. You have to have a good offensive line. And this was a unit, I mean, I'll call a spade, ladies and gentlemen. I was really, really concerned about heading into the season. I don't know how much I believed in this offensive line unit. And y'all know that. I voiced that opinion. But they've been good. They're protecting the quarterback. They're creating holes. They're grading out well on PFF. And I think that, you know, after Bowling Green, ladies and gentlemen, it is SEC time. So I think you really want – so the point of this whole conversation is you really want the offensive line to have one more dominant performance against Bowling Green before you get into Arkansas, Missouri, Mississippi State, LSU, South Carolina, you know, before you really get into the heat of SEC play. You want to see your offensive line continue to stack solid performances, and I believe they're going to do that. But, I mean, if we see one more game where they're given their quarterback time and they're creating holes for the running backs, it's going to be really hard not to buy in fully to this Texas A&M offensive line. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, in the offseason, that was not something I was going to say at this point. I thought I was going to be able to say at this point in the season, which is really, really, really exciting. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Aggies. Thank you all so much for being here every single day. Like I said, leave some mailbag questions for tomorrow. Send them to me on Twitter at Andrew Stefaniak or leave them in the YouTube comments here on the show. Hope everyone has a great rest of their Thursday, and we'll see you tomorrow right here on Locked On Aggies.